America, we have a trust problem. Many Americans don't trust their neighbors, their news, their nation. Political tensions breed divisions across the aisle and even across the dinner table. Misinformation and vilification run rampant, and many Americans are worried about where the country will go. Is there a path forward? Despite all our differences, can we still find common ground to rebuild the public trust? I'm Josh Robin, and we're looking at efforts across the country that do bridge the divide.
People walk by on the sidewalk. We can chat with them. If multiple of us are outside, there's just space for us to be.
Christina Niggle is big on bringing people together. On a daily basis, her yard serves as a gathering place for neighbors to socialize and kids to play.
Being seen and being supported in our community is really a wonderful thing.
Her passion for togetherness has also given her a chance to build community with people she wouldn't have expected, like Doc Ham. Ham, a devoted husband and self-described serial entrepreneur, lives just across town, but politically, his worlds apart. The two voluntarily engage in hard conversations.
Does that make you uncomfortable?
Well, I don't see it in those terms at all.
Niggle plans to check the box for Harris in November. Ham, the one for Trump.
It's foolish to keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. So maybe Trump will help us in some way, some fashion.
The two became friends through their local chapter of Braver Angels.
Anyone here for their first time at a Braver Angels event?
It's a nationwide organization founded in the wake of the 2016 election, and it aims to bridge deep political divides through conversation. In Braver Angels terms, Niggle is a blue, or liberal-leaning, and Ham is a red, conservative-leaning.
Why was that important to you to get to hear the other side?
I feel like I got into an echo chamber where people would talk about, oh, the Republicans, like this or that. And I thought, I know a bunch of really good people who are Republicans, and they're not like that.
It's all about talking, even arguing, civilly. Niggle and Ham say they're trying to understand each other, not win a debate.
I have conversations with Doc because I honestly appreciate his point of view.
Yeah, I respect her, I trust her. She's going to do what she thinks is right.
With today's deep political divisions, many Americans would find it hard to believe that this type of respect and trust is possible.
A lot of what we hear on the news and see on social media is just people who are on the extremes, and then it makes it seem like that's what everyone is like, but that's not really true.
Research shows getting along may actually be easier than we think. One study found that Republicans and Democrats think 55% of their opponents hold extreme views, when in reality only 30% hold views considered extreme. Democrats and Republicans also tend to significantly overestimate how much the other side dislikes them.
There are some negative attitudes, there are stereotypes, but we play it up in our minds a lot more than it actually is.
Hartman says that simply realizing this can help people feel less divided, and groups that encourage discussion can help.
It creates this sense of like, no, there actually is discourse across the aisle.
Braver Angels and other groups are doing bridge building work across the country, but it's particularly relevant in places like Wilmington, North Carolina, a city and a state that are notably politically mixed.
It is about 50% conservative, 50% liberal here. It's a hotbed for possible tension and political rancor.
You have every nationality you can imagine, every different skin color, any different cultural background, and every income class.
Nancy Cunningham, a blue, and Eddie Jones, a red, co-lead Wilmington's Braver Angels Alliance. It's one of the most active in the country.
So how did you guys meet?
Well, Eddie was my son's lacrosse coach, two of my sons, for over 10 years. Yeah, we did not talk politics between the two of us. We would mostly talk about lacrosse
Yeah.
and coaching and yeah.
A little over a year and a half ago, Cunningham approached Jones about co-leading the group with her.
And what's going through your mind?
She's crazy.
Why?
Because I didn't think it was going to work.
He's been pleasantly surprised.
I was one of those people that was like outspoken on social media about politics and what I thought was right and what I thought was wrong. And it's a big difference when I'm sitting across from somebody.
Ever since, the Wilmington Alliance has hosted discussions, community service projects, and monthly socials at a local sports bar.
We want to give you the opportunity to have a 10-minute conversation with one person and then another and then another.
To some, conversations with those on the other side politically would seem like the opposite of happy hour. But we didn't see any bar stools flying. On the contrary, it was civil, even amid big disagreements.
I mean, it's not like you're arguing here over, a marginal tax rate. It's whether vaccines are dangerous or climate change exists or someone won an election.
It is true we're working on different facts right now, different realities depending on your information sources, but what we're finding is we have the same values.
We find common ground on just about every topic before we leave the room.
Braver Angels sees its role as simply to facilitate conversation, not to fact check, even with claims proven to be false, like Trump's assertions about the 2020 election.
Are there people within Braver Angels who believe the election was stolen? Yes.
And what do you do with them?
Listen to them, because the only way we can reconnect and find out that the other person is a three-dimensional human being and not a label or a stereotype is to allow for that.
All right, is that brick gonna come down?
For Niggle, his work of breaking down barriers is deeply personal.
Okay. And there's a long line of service to our country and my family.
Niggle's grandfather, father, and husband have served in the military, and her brother died serving in Afghanistan.
So I feel like if they can give all of that to our country, the least we can do is sit in a room and talk and be together. And if that's what currently saves our republic, then we can all be here for that. And that's such a little sacrifice to make.
News, memes, posts, comments, it's all coming at us constantly from our TV screens to our social media feeds. Amid this information avalanche, two Kansans are taking news gathering back to its roots.
News in Harvey County arrives the old-fashioned way. There are no screen pop-ups or phone notifications. It's printed, hot, ink-stained, and yes, loud.
It's very old school. It's very just the way people used to do it. Instead of being inundated with dings and alerts every time something happens.
What lands on dead trees is what publisher Joey Young prints, or puts to bed the night before in newspaper lingo. Pages are filled with the goings-on of this central Kansas town, things you probably want to know about where you live, how your taxes are spent, how the local team is doing, inspiring things about your neighbors, and yes, if there's a scandal. But in many places, that important news is hard to find. An increasing number of places in the U.S. don't have a local newspaper. Since 2005, almost 2,900 newspapers have shuttered. Stepping into the void are divisive, partisan headlines, as well as straight-up untrustworthy and fake sources. Studies find there are more partisan sites pretending to be neutral than actual daily newspapers. Local happenings are out. National controversy is in, breeding misinformation and distrust. And it's driven by something that keeps on getting bigger.
Social media has fractured us. Social media has given us so many different opportunities for information.
The question is what to do. Young's answer is to do the opposite of what many media companies chase. He largely ditches social media and channels simpler times.
It's been harder and harder to get our message through on social media. We've largely stopped using it as a platform for that.
Paper, that new, old platform, is proving popular in a small town. He also has another novel approach to combat the distrust and general nastiness that you often see online. He gets people together, in person. An old saloon in the back of the office helps.
Here, you're having these conversations face to face.
Yeah, it's better.
Why is it better?
It's better because it's so disarming. Like, it's easier to be angry online. Like, it's easier to type something out and be irritated about something. But if you're like just communicating like this far apart, you know, it's easier to hear other people's thoughts.
A couple of towns west, Michael Glenn is doing the same thing with a couple of differences. For one, Glenn is just 17. He and a local librarian started a news site when they agreed the area paper wasn't covering much local.
I've always loved to write. I've always loved to research. Well, now you're telling me I get paid to do that and I get to have an impact on my community. I mean, that's awesome.
He defies a generation used to a virtual life, going to local meetings, as long as he can borrow his parents' car. The paper is for now online, but Glenn is eyeing a printed version. But he isn't much on social media. He lists his phone number and tries to meet in person.
You can't just snap your fingers and people believe you. You have to build that trust. And you build it by being public, being accountable. If you make a mistake, own up to it.
Social media use has soared while traditional news media has fallen. That much is clear. What's less easy to quantify is how all of that is impacting the trust that we have in the information that we consume. But it's clearly having an effect.
We're really in our ideological bubble. We are being served content based on our identity.
This reporter turned media professor says a study finds only a third of adults in the United States can tell the difference between a fact and an opinion. She launched an exhibit to teach people how to spot what's true and what's not online.
Our democracy depends on shared facts and on accurate information. And if we do not have that, we cannot govern ourselves, and we deserve self-government.
Of course, getting shared facts was a lot easier at one time. We're long past all sitting around the radio or getting the same afternoon newspaper. Misinformation is also hard to define, and it's debatable how much of it should be regulated. Complaints about social media are not new, and companies have responded in different ways. The most well-known defend their practices, saying that they've taken meaningful steps to combat misinformation on their platforms. But there are some ways to build trust in what most of us read and see.
So if you are emotional about something that you just read on a news site, just wait, just stop. Wait 6 seconds, 10 seconds. It's the average amount of time that it takes for someone to just hit share, and now the disinformation has become misinformation.
The news and images on your social media feed may be wrong or politically slanted or might just lack the nuance inherent in complex issues, especially in an election year. That's where careful journalists like Joey Young and Michael Glenn come in, at least at one local level.
We're not out to get anybody, but we help hold government accountable. We are the main cheerleader of our community, and communities die without local journalism.
At the end of the day, we want people to know that if we publish something, that they can trust it.
Many Americans worry about the future of our country, but the young people poised to shape the future, they're taking the responsibility head on.
By night, the American political theory class at East Kentwood High School
How do you do that?
looks like a typical group of high school seniors. By day,
our lackluster civic education
they're a team of seasoned political experts.
is not doing us any favors in helping people become.
When we met them, the students were preparing to present their arguments on the biggest stage for high school civics.
Friday, we're going to fly out to Washington, D.C. to compete in nationals.
The contest is called We the People. It's one of several programs designed by the Center for Civic Education. That's a group dedicated to teaching students about U.S. government, encouraging civic engagement, and getting kids to practice critical thinking about U.S. politics.
We get to, really dissect American political theory is. It's just about learning and trying to get better and trying to understand the way that our government works. Come in, I can pick two justices.
And for Kareem Suleiman and his family, it's not just an abstract theory.
I never miss a vote. I never miss since I came here. It's better to vote wrong than not voting at all.
Don't I look like your dad?
Kareem's father, Mohammed, came to the U.S. as a refugee in 1984 from Ethiopia, where there was no right to vote.
We take it here for granted.
He made sure his children didn't, even taking them with him to the polls every year.
Even if they have to miss a class, I believe it's very important, so I take them with me.
It's inspiring his career plans.
I think public policy is what I want to do, and I think being an elected official is something that I could achieve in representing my district.
He sees government as a vehicle for change.
I do have a lot of faith and trust for the future.
But that optimism isn't always shared by his generation.
Many of them are concerned that the country is headed in the wrong direction.
In fact, American trust in institutions is at an all-time low across demographics.
It's hard to get legislators to focus on the national common good.
Noah Avalos understands where that cynicism comes from. He says he's felt it too.
Before this program, I didn't really keep up with politics that much. I thought it was all a lost cause. I was like, I don't want to waste my time with politics because it's all corrupt, the institutions are corrupt, the people are corrupt.
Today, he still sees systemic issues that need to be addressed. He cites concerns about gerrymandering and campaign finance. It used to be those issues just gnawed at him, but his attitude changed after the civics class.
I'm a lot more aware of problems that are happening, but I'm also a lot more aware of how to fix them.
The teacher and coach behind it all sees the change in real time among his students.
There's some power in knowing that the way it is isn't how it has to be.
We the People dives deep into the foundational texts that the U.S. was built upon, teaching students to think for themselves about how those principles apply today. But programs like this aren't standard nationwide. The latest data shows only 7 states require a full year of high school civics. 13 states have no civics requirement at all. But for the teams preparing for the national finals, the subject is front and center as they head to the nation's capital. Teams from all over the country participate in mock congressional hearings, competing to show their understanding of complex civic issues.
Gambling is a vicious evil. It corrupts our youth and blights the lives of our adults.
It's a model that harkens back to an earlier era of congressional hearings, and it looks somewhat different than many of the high-profile hearings the students are used to seeing in the news today.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Big
No,
guy.
no, stop it.
Is that your solution every
Hold it. No, sit down. Sit down. Okay. You know, you're a United States Senator.
It's not political debate. It's a congressional hearing model. You're going to go and impress people with your depth of knowledge.
I feel like we did an amazing job, so we're feeling good about it.
We got to say a lot of the things we wanted to say. We got asked a lot of interesting questions.
After 2 days of competition, the team placed 20th in the nation. A strong showing, though not the top 10 they'd hoped for. For Robbins, it's motivation. He has high hopes, not only for the students in the program, but for their generation as a whole.
I would challenge like the way people kind of throw up their arms and go, oh, well, it's just going to be messed up because the next generation isn't ready, doesn't care.
While surveys suggest young people today have less faith in our government and institutions, experts say this generation is far from apathetic.
Young people have voted at historic rates in the last couple of election cycles. And young people tend to be really engaged in other ways, especially when it comes to things like activism. Our data suggests that that has tripled since 2016. They're really invested in and show up and care about particular issues that matter to them.
In fact, Gen Z has often demonstrated that while they may not trust those in power, they still believe in the core principles the country was built upon, the power of the people.
You know, look at Federalist 49. A government is only legitimate because of the people. They're the only legitimate fountain of power. And I think that we need to take that back.
Genuinely believe that we can make America a greater place, right?
What we're doing with these kids and their generation it's the right thing to be doing, and replicating it is the challenge, but when you can replicate it, it has a ripple effect.
And for Kareem, this experience has inspired not only trust in the government, but in his own generation.
Once you teach the youth and you tell them what's right and what's wrong, then you don't have to worry about what the adults believe, because there's a new generation of young people that's going to come up and that will make the world a better place.
In an election year rife with mudslinging and harsh rhetoric, It may be worth remembering that no matter our political preference come November, we'll all be voting for the same thing, a future we can trust. For Spectrum News, I'm Josh Robin. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth political coverage. And click the subscribe button here. You can also download our app and watch us on TV to learn more about the candidates, where they stand on the issues, and more. We'll see you then.